Hi everyone, I'm Don Matthews, and welcome to another Ninja Theory podcast. I'm here with a very special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Dan, the other Dan, and I'm the Environment Art Director here at Ninja Theory.
Awesome. So you and I have worked together for a long time actually, and one thing I was thinking about for this is you and I think, were two of the very original members of the Hellblade team.
Yeah, I think I probably was.
I don't think there were many at that stage, because it was after Fight Back, right? And I don't know what else was going on at that point in time, but I think there must have only been, on the original team, you, me, Stu Adcock, Vincent Van Moppes, Claire, yeah.
Dustin. Yeah, I remember just getting a tap on the shoulder and saying, "You come with me." And taken into the boardroom and going, "Well, what's going on here?" And then, the plans for this Hellblade were kind of revealed.
So there must have been that document at that point in time then. To me, must have written that document.
Yeah, I think so. He did the elevator pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was only... Actually, so I don't know how many of those original team members are still here.
Me and you.
From that very original team, it might be. Yeah. Because you were the only environment artist on it, right? And then Robin joined, but that was quite late.
Yes.
Oh, what... Did that seem kind of ludicrous at the time?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite daunting, isn't it? But also, it's super exciting to feel like you've been sort of given that, or been chosen to be one of those key members. Yeah, and it's a totally different feeling. Like, we said it was indie AAA, and it really was indie. It felt like that because there was so few of you at the very beginning like that. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
Yeah, because we sat in that corner of the studio. So our old studio building, it was two wings essentially, a reception in the middle, two wings, and on one wing there was another project going on. I forget what it was, and then over in the sort of the other wing there was like one corner of that wing was the sort of that embryonic Hellblade team with maybe 10 people.
Yeah, probably
something like that, right? And I remember from an environment standpoint, there was this idea originally of we're going to build a world and then we're going to fit the game around it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the idea for it was really nebulous, wasn't it, as well, to begin with? So we didn't... There was that floated, and then it was going to be one thing and another thing, and... Yeah,
because originally I think it was going to be a combat arena game, right? And then I remember there was a conversation about what if we could make the world morph around her, and then that led into that conversation around seeing the world through Senua's unique perspective and what that would mean for us in terms of how we actually went and built that game. But anyway, I want to start further back than that.
Yeah.
But it gives some context to where you and I have worked together. I mean, we worked together before that on Fight Back, and there's some amazing environments in there. But let's talk about kind of your career in games, because you started making games. Well, I know you worked on N64.
That
right?
was one of the first projects that, it was a cancelled project.
Yeah.
Way back on my first job,
So how many years have you been in the industry then?
Well, rewind even further than that.
Yeah.
So I had a small foray into making games when I was about 16, 17. I think I've spoken to you about this before.
But tell me again.
Yeah. So I started working on a project with my dad and a couple of other guys, and it was a beat 'em up game in the kind of guise of a Mortal Kombat clone. I think we might have stole quite a bit of code. We did shot people, rotoscoped them, put them in. We had a game going. We took it to Psygnosis, and they reviewed it. They took it off into another room and let their testers play it. They gave us something like 82%.
That's a good review
and
score.
There was lots of talks about developing it further. We had a little studio tour, and I got to see the previs of Wipeout playing on a VHS tape of a ship flying down a corridor with the Prodigy playing in the background. And it's all a bit fuzzy, really. And so we talked about that, and then kind of one thing led to another, and it didn't really happen. Because we developed it on Amiga, because I was always dead into that, mainly through my dad as well. And then that kind of fizzled out for whatever reasons. And then my parents divorced, and then that completely sort of pulled the rug under it. And then that was like my first time, like kind of got the inklings that this is something that I want to do.
And what led? So you were 17 then, right?
Yeah.
So what led to you having that interest in games then, and I presume at that stage wanting to pursue it as a career?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd thought about it. I'd always been into doing computer graphics and stuff like that. I was always lucky to have a computer in the house. We never had consoles. It was always Atari and Amiga, PC kind of thing. And then I went to art school. I did straight out from GCSE straight into art school, so 3 years there. And then I decided I wanted to do photography, and kind of all that digital stuff was kind of on the back burner. And then I went through university, and then graduated, and then was like, oh, what the hell do I do?
So did you do photography at university then?
Yeah. And realised that I didn't want to be a photographer.
Yeah.
And then was unemployed for like 6 months. And then suddenly thought, hold on, maybe I could make video games. So I bought a copy of Edge and basically applied for every single job I could see in there. I just sent out loads and loads of letters. I think I got 2 interviews out of it, out of sending them out. I don't know how many there were. One of them was up in Liverpool, and I got interviewed by a guy with no socks on, which is really strange because I turned up in a tie. That didn't go anywhere. I can't remember the studio, to be honest. And then the second one, I did some more work on my portfolio, and then I took that with me when I got another interview down in Portsmouth, and I got the break, and that was in 1999. So.
And what role was that then? Was that an environment art role?
Artist, yeah.
So sort of you would do everything, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I tried a bit of characters, environment. I mean, it was mainly environment stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of thrown right in it, basically.
But I presume your photography degree. I mean, I know you and I know your work, and I can see that coming through in your work, right? Because you've got a fundamental feeling for composition, lighting.
Yeah.
All of those things, and I presume some of that must have come from your photography background.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's anything that I actually learned at uni.
Yeah.
But there's always been an interest, and I think it's a really useful skill to have.
Yeah.
In that sense, lighting and composition and that, it's fundamental.
Yeah. So the first game that you shipped then would have been in the first job?
Yes. So I worked on a game called Sudeki, which was published by Microsoft. It was a massively ambitious kind of JRPG kind of clone with like multi-characters and leveling up and skill trees and all this kind of stuff. And it was this big kind of epic storyline. Took us about 4.5 odd years. Seemed to go on and on and on forever. I got promoted to lead artist during that. Managed to release it somehow.
So that would have been on.
That was on Xbox.
The original Xbox.
So we had we worked on. We had the original Xbox dev kits came in.
Yeah.
When it was inside a big Mac case. I think we blew one up because we didn't change the voltage on the back of it after getting one of the only ones in the country. So that was kind of the big project that I shipped then, and I was there for 5 years.
So then correct me if I'm wrong, but then that must lead into your time at Ninja.
Yes.
Right. So then you joined. So 2005, Heavenly Sword is in production at that point.
Yeah. So unlike a lot of people in the industry, this is only my second job I've ever had.
Wow.
Lots of people do a lot of bouncing around and have been all over the place, whereas I feel like I've been quite loyal, I think, maybe a bit lucky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I came here just after, I think, the kind of concept trailer for Heavenly Sword had been done, which was all in engine, which was all super impressive. And a couple of the guys that I'd worked with had come here, so I kind of got a little bit poached by them.
Yeah.
Because by the end of the other project, at the previous place, people were kind of disappearing, sort of friend groups sort of disbanded, and it was just like, oh, it's time to move on. And then I came to Cambridge, yeah.
And you were environment artist at that point then, right?
Yeah, so I came in as senior environment artist. So I came from I was lead previously. I knew I didn't want to do all the admin stuff.
Yeah.
So I was happy to go in for a senior role.
Yeah, yeah. And so you've been at Ninja Theory, so 2005, so you've been at Ninja Theory for what, 18 years?
It will be this year, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. How have things changed in game art, in environment art over that period?
Crikey.
A lot, right?
Yeah. Hugely, massive amount. The industry as a whole is unrecognisable. It was like the Wild West when I first started. No such thing as HR. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people were working crazy hours. People were giving it their all, and just there was chaos basically, and it's just amazing that we ever managed to get anything out. But overall, the whole industry's become way more professional.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bit different when I came to Ninja. Definitely more professional than it was previously. But I did turn up and I had a desk and no computer. I think on my first day. But yeah, it's even in the last 2 or 3 years, things have changed massively for environment art.
Yeah.
I would say it's probably unrecognisable now compared to it was 18 years ago.
And has that been led by kind of our particular pursuit of believability, realism? Because what we're doing now, or I can imagine, even when I joined Ninja, right, 12 years ago, it seemed like the pipeline would be that designers would block out a level, right? And then, let's look at a game like DMC, right? DMC, designers would block out that level, hand that over to you as an artist and say, right, let's make that make sense. And that's come kind of, we're now on the other end of that sort of spectrum where in Senua's Saga Hellblade II, we're really doing the reverse of that, which is we're setting it in a real location in Iceland, and that is your foundation, like a film set. That's your location to then set the action around.
Yeah.
Right. So that in itself is a massive change.
That's a huge shift for us. I think what you're describing before is still relevant, depending on what project you're working on. But like, it was a conscious decision on our behalf for that. It kind of feeds into the ethos that we've taken with the characters, in the way that you've got the actor, you're scanning the actor, you're making the costume, you're scanning the costume. There's your believability right there. There's realism at its best because you're taking a copy of what's really there. And same is true for the environment stuff now. So we wanted that same level of believability, and the best way to do that is to choose a real location, use that as your foundation, and build on top of that. Yeah. So that has been one of the biggest changes for us in the company, I think, is getting your head around that. And that way of working is definitely very different.
And does that approach change your ability to be creative as an artist?
No, it just it changes your focus. Because if we're using obviously a lot of scan data, like acquired data, where we're doing photogrammetry, or we're using other assets that have been acquired by other companies and things, and you're using those, it's almost like I equate it now to, it's more in line with dressing a real life set, in the fact that you're kind of going to the warehouse and you're finding the bits that you want and you're sticking them in there. So in terms of creativity, the focus shifts, for us at least, a bit more, that when it comes to the set dressing part of it, which is like where you can spend more time and more effort into that, in making stuff look believable in that setting, rather than spending the time modelling a rock by hand. When you've got 1,000 scans of rocks, then you've got all those at your disposal, and your attention is about putting them in the scene and making it feel believable, kind of thing.
Yeah, got it. So you can you have to spend less there's less sort of creative focus on the foundational world, if you see what I mean, and you can really focus that effort on, well, exactly like you say.
Yeah.
I don't need to just say it again, right? But yeah, I get it. It's like a film set.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah.
You know, for us, our film set is this place in Iceland.
Yeah.
I heard someone told me, forget who it was, but one of our actors, it might be Mark. We showed some of the game to one of the actors who's from Iceland.
Yes.
And he was like, "Oh, I know that place."
I did. I heard that. Yeah. Yeah.
Which is super cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a surprise, but
yeah. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. When we finally kind of show this stuff, it's not a facsimile.
Yeah.
Because that would, it's not going to work in that way. I think that would be a little bit too dry.
Yes.
When you're shooting on a real location, it's not necessarily in real world space. You're using different angles or even multiple locations stitched together to make another location kind of thing in a film. So in the same way it's us. So we're changing stuff where we need to change stuff to kind of facilitate the story, etc. But that base foundation is a real location. And that was always going to be the intention.
And it means that we have a game where if people wanted to go on like a tour of the locations of Senua Saga, they could.
Yeah, yeah, you could. Yeah.
They could go and do that, and they could go, this is where this happened and this happened in the real world locations, which is super cool. It's something that I spoke to the other Dan about on the last podcast, but why do you think it's important to have that real place as a grounding?
Well, I mean, it's immersion, isn't it? And it's the believability that you get from using a scanned asset is huge, because there's intricacies and stuff in that you're never going to be able to replicate by hand. Well, you might be able to, but it's laborious. There's parts of that. If I'm using this rock, the things that happen on that surface, it can, over thousands of years, and there's going to be details in that scanned asset that you just couldn't recreate, basically. So that's going to give you that believability, I think, because you're not going to question it as much when you see it, because it's a real thing.
Yeah, yeah, and particularly in Iceland, right? Like it can look like an alien place, like it can look like a different planet, but it's but let's say that the creative or the design by nature is what makes it real. Although it's alien, those rocks are alien and unusual, beautiful as a result. Yeah. There's something inherent in it that tells you that it's a real object and not the creation of a human's mind.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think also what you get from using the real location is a lot of the time when you make kind of props and things that go into games, you have to go for the obvious things, otherwise it doesn't look right. But you can go to Iceland and look at stuff and you think, that looks kind of weird. But I'm looking at it, so it must be real. But if I was to try and model that by hand and you put it, people will go, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
But yeah, does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's like it doesn't. If you're trying to fit an art style and you put something like that in, it might not fit, but because it fits into the sort of natural art style, if you like, of an actual place, then it does fit because it's there and because it's real.
Yeah, totally.
It might stand out as an object in a purely fictional location, but the real world doesn't adhere to those kind of rules.
Yeah.
And from what I've seen of Iceland, right, I haven't been there. I think I'm about the only person left in the studio that hasn't been there, right? And hearing you describe it and what it's like there, it seems like it's almost a fantastical place. Like those talking about those huge sort of boulders on the beach in
Reykjanesta.
Yeah, that's
Reykjanes Peninsula.
Your pronunciation is going to be way better.
It's probably wrong as well.
When I first saw those, I was like, oh, like they look quite big, and you're like, yeah, they are. They're huge. They can look like pebbles on the beach, but actually, when you're there, they look like giant's pebbles.
Yes, yeah, and but Iceland's like that though as well. The great thing about it as well, which about using the country as a location, is you can literally travel half an hour up the road and it's a whole brand new feature. And we've kind of got that with the locations that we've picked. They feel very distinct. And that's just naturally, do you know what I mean? We haven't had to try and make them feel different. You know, thematically they're all obviously Iceland, but visually they're very distinct different places. Yeah. Which I think is really unique about a country. It's mad though, because you drive around kind of the ring road and you sort of, we'll pull off here, and there's an amazing thing, get back in the car, drive a bit further, pull off here, what the hell is that? Back in the car, you know, and you can just do that all the way around. It's just it's an environment artist's dream location, really.
And you and the team have been out there a couple of times, right? Have you been twice?
I've been twice, and then all the other guys have been out. We went out the last time for the long trip.
Do you think it's important to do that when you've got a real world location to actually go there and see it?
It's absolutely fundamental. You have to.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about what you see, and it's about how it feels as well, definitely. Being there and getting that understanding of scale, like you say about the rocks. But I can tell you, and I can show you a photograph of somebody standing next to it, and it's weird, isn't it? It's massive. But until you actually go there, you're like, holy crap, now I actually get it.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when, because the audio team have been out, some of the designers have been out, quite a few people have been out from a lot of different parts of the team. I found it really interesting when those, like, the designers had been out and they'd come back and say, oh yeah, there's no way you could climb up that, or you could run down that slope. Yeah. And I could see, like, almost, you could see who had been out there and who hadn't. Right, and then when more people started to go and visit and come back, it was like, cool, now everyone's aligned on what this place is actually like. And you could all reference it pretty clearly because you've been there. Like, like on this cliff, and do you remember when we were here? And and everyone can relate to the sound, like you say, the feel of it, like the look of it, the sound, the just the atmosphere of the place. Yeah,
it's really important. If you are going to go down that route, definitely. I mean, you could stay home and you could trawl the internet for as long as you want, but it's going to be a facsimile. It's going to feel not quite right. I've seen it in other games where they've done locations that you can tell this is a North American studio who's done a British location. Yes. Without naming any names. And it's just wrong on every level. You know what I mean? It feels wrong. There's the essence isn't there. Yeah. And you know, fair enough. The project might not have the budget for you to go out to these locations, and if you are using a real world location as a reference, but you know, it just seemed like a no-brainer for us.
Because Iceland's not that far from the UK, right?
No, it's not at all. It's about 4 hours.
About 4 hour flight. And what is it that, like, because you were out there for 2 weeks last time?
12 days.
Best part of 2 weeks. What did you do out there? How did you utilise that time out there?
So it was pretty packed because 12 days. I think it was 21 locations we did in the end. I think thousands of kilometres of driving. But so we visited the principal locations. We spent slightly longer in them, and we did drone-based photogrammetry of lots of stuff. So flying around big rock structures and doing sort of panning stuff of cliffs and things like that. And they would do low-level photogrammetry as well with handheld cameras. We did a load of GoPro 360 videos, which are really useful. Because again, if you've not been, seeing it and being able to move around the camera as the person's walking around with filming it is really useful. And then just loads of reference stuff as well. And then just, like I say, just being there. We spent longer in the principal locations, and then we did a couple of little offshoots. We went out to the volcano, which I'm not going to pronounce, the one that erupted a couple of years ago now, which went out on the lava, which I've since learnt that we shouldn't have done. There's still some hot bits down there, but that in itself, like, that sparks other ideas. You know, we're going to try and use that in some of the other locations. You know, and since then, you know, we've got more drone-based stuff off that we've captured and processed as well. So we've got a huge arsenal of of props and things to use out of that trip.
Yeah. So it just gives you a bank of knowledge for the team, but also a bank of material to lean on and actually utilise in the game.
Yeah, and like we kind of had to do it as well. Since Quixel became kind of free for all, then you start to get kind of slightly more homogenised kind of art, and you start to recognise assets.
Yeah.
I know that rock. I know that bucket.
Yeah. And Quixel is a photogrammetry based asset library that is part of Unreal Engine now, right?
Yes.
So essentially, it's a library of assets that if you've got Unreal Engine, you can go and access that library and you can find the I don't know, hundreds of rocks on there probably.
Yeah, thousands. It's fantastic. It's amazing, and we use it all over the place. But like we had to capture our own stuff. Yeah. To put us apart from what other people are doing, you know, and plus there's stuff in there that you just can't recreate with off the shelf stuff. There's kind of really unique rock structures and things. I mean, I know there's like an Iceland pack that they've got there, but they're not necessarily from the same locations. Yeah. But yeah, so it was again, it was a no-brainer again for us to go out there and capture our own stuff to augment that and add to it and enrich it.
And our locations are very, like you say, they're very unique in their own right. So when you move from location to location, they're very, very different. So it's difficult to say here's an Iceland rock. Yeah. Because the geology is unique in each of those locations.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of processing that we can do. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of the project doing an awful lot of prototyping and R&D into using kind of procedural methods and acquired data and how to kind of use those two things to kind of maximise their usability. So how can I process this rock to look different and I could use it in multiple places? How can I take this flat scan of a surface and turn that into 3D geometry kind of thing? Yeah. So we did an awful lot of front ending on that, and we do that all the time, and we try and leverage that to kind of maximise usage out of all of our stuff.
Yeah, well, and that's a really interesting point because on Hellblade 1, like we said earlier, there was really a team of you on environment art, and then Robin, one of our other environment artists here at Ninja, joined the team. And on Hellblade 1, it was really about taking a small number of assets and using those in clever ways to create the scale, the quality and the richness of location that we could. Even now on Hellblade 2, the team's not massive.
No.
Right?
There's 6 of us.
So there's 6 of you on the team. Yeah. So I presume that approach, that mentality remains.
Yeah, totally.
It's still, how can we take assets and use them in really clever ways?
Yeah, and that was what we did in that kind of pre-production phase, was thinking about what are the laborious tasks, how can we kind of automate those, how can we use tools to kind of maximise that, taking the pain out of things, all the stuff that takes you a long time to do by hand, can we put that through Houdini and do some cool stuff with it? And that was kind of out of necessity in the first game. Yeah. It was more, this was kind of pre-Houdini before we sort of adopted it as well. So a lot of blueprint based stuff that I got kind of quite heavily into.
And Houdini is just for people that are kind of not familiar with Houdini is, in the last few years, is a tool that has really made its way over from film.
Yeah. So the VFX guys kind of adopted it. I can't remember if Mark was using it at the end of Hellblade or not.
I think it was probably 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, at least. But yeah, so they, as a company as well, they've kind of embraced that part of the industry, like the games industry and stuff, which is great. So there's a lot of tools and things that they've developed that have fed into what we do. But it's kind of, I spend all my time in there. It's kind of essential. I've kind of rejected everything else.
And a lot of the, or certainly in that pre-production phase, like I know a lot of or some of the work that you do is the creation of those tools. Yeah. So it's rather than creating, because some people might imagine that it is starting with a blank piece of paper. Now we're gonna sculpt and we're gonna build every object individually. Actually, you have tools now where you can essentially paint on textures.
Yeah.
to an extent, or is that
in
not
a
true?
way? Yeah, kind of.
Not entirely, but certain things. Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking of your I can't remember what it was called. The bird poo sprayer, right? Where you can spray on
the poop cannon.
The poop cannon, right?
Well, that wasn't actually Houdini, but I mean that's an example of that kind of. It's a process, and it's how can you automate that? And
yeah,
you're like, how can I cover this rock face in bird poo in the shortest time possible?
Yeah. But the process there is like you're not going to go in and kind of paint in all of that bird poo manually, right? What you're going to do is create a bird poo cannon tool that you can then use to spray bird poo lavishly.
This is pretty much sums up my entire career at this stage.
Yeah. Spraying bird poo about the place. That is what you're known for. Yeah. But I suppose the point is that, for people who are listening that might not have really thought about environment art that much before, it may be different to what people think.
Absolutely, yeah. What I do and what I get the most enjoyment out of now is that helping the other guys and making tools that kind of speed them up. I find that really interesting and and it's sort of empowering for them as well, because here's a thing that would traditionally take a long time. Here we go. I've put a little bit of effort into it. Now you can do it really quickly.
Yeah.
And it's environment art now is the scope of it is huge really within it. I know some companies kind of take their teams and they're a bit more granular about what people do. They've got a texture artist and a UVer and a modeler. Whereas like here, because we've always been small, we always have to kind of be a bit more generalist within the discipline.
Yeah.
So we get our hands dirty with everything. But the things that we do, we do still do some modelling. We do the procedural based tools. We do the set dressing. We do some lighting. We do texturing. We do even other stuff which kind of feeds into gameplay and stuff as well. Like can help out like dressing, things like that. It's all it's pretty wide.
Yeah. Because I've kind of heard from other studios that you sort of get hard surface people, right? Like organic material people, interior people, exterior people, like people that specialise in. I just do hard surfaces. Like, don't ask me to do a bush, because that's not what I do.
That feels really alien to me, though. I mean, maybe like I said, I've only worked in 2 places, so I don't know.
yeah. But what it does give us is, I mean, you've got such a excellent team in environment art, but what it gives you is a small team, but a small team of people that are generalists within environment art. They can do a bit of everything.
Yeah.
They're very technical. They've got a great artistic eye. They can do the full breadth of things, and at the same time, I think like we're doing in Senua Saga is look at what the next innovation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is. One of the things I loved is some of the team getting their drone licenses.
Yes.
Right, which is like, a bigger team that might be someone else or, that would do that is like, no, our team are going out there, we're going to get drone licenses so we can fly these around Iceland.
Yeah.
We can capture exactly the stuff that we want, and then we're going to come home and we're going to be working with that data at our desks.
Yes.
That's not handed on to someone else.
Yeah.
It's those 6 people that are building out the world in Hellblade II.
Yeah. Absolutely. I am super lucky. The team that we have is amazing, and I think we hit Ninja Theory first time history of having an entire department that was all expert level.
Yes.
Which I think.
Yeah, it's true.
After some promotions not so long ago.
Yeah.
But it shows. Do you know what I mean? Like they're all amazing at what they do, and I don't think we could do the project any other way. I think.
Yeah.
There's always that question about, how the hell did we manage to do Hellblade 1? And the answer is, well, we had an extremely experienced team. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's a really simple answer.
Yeah.
A lot of these people have been doing this for a very long time. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
We added up our combined years of experience the other day, just on environment art, and we have over 110 years worth of man experience.
Wow.
Between us.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah. And I think you're right. That is, That is what allows us to do what we do. One of the things that I've heard you say before is that Hellblade 2 is like the game you've always wanted to make from an environmental art perspective. Like, what do you mean by that?
Good question. I don't know. I think it's. Now you put me on the spot.
You just always wanted to make a sequel.
Yeah. Well, do you know what?
Because you've never done it before.
I've never made a bloody sequel.
Yeah.
It's empowering now with the kind of the tools that we've got and the technology, and being able to base stuff on reality like that. I think that's a really exciting part of it. Yeah.
Which is interesting because, like, just to the conversation we had earlier, right? You would think, and I don't get a sense of this from you or anyone in the team that they would be like, no, I want to start from scratch. I want to start with nothing. But I can see, you know, when we sit down and review the game and look at the build, you can kind of see the joy kind of coming through in those environments, although they're dark. Yeah, they're dark and
there's not much joy in
brutal
visually, but yeah.
But the pipeline that we have now, you can bring through such vividness. Yeah. And because it's based on a real place, when you start to change weather and start to change lighting, it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the beauty of using reality.
Yeah.
To base it on.
Yeah.
Is you can change the feel and look of it just by changing the atmospherics and stuff.
Yeah.
And it responds correctly and it feels right and.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me as well, like, because I don't disagree with you in terms of like being the game that we've always wanted to make. I think being able to continue Senua's journey in the way that we are, and to be able to build on what we created in Hellblade 1 and have the opportunity to do that, but with across the board all of these different dreams really as to how we could do it. You know, from creating an actual costume and scanning it and putting it in the game to taking a real world location and recreating that in the game, through to some of the stuff that we're doing on our mocap stage now, which is on a completely different scale to what we've done before. I suppose part of it is that we've got the opportunity to go and pursue those avenues.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a huge plus. Like I'm still really mindful of the fact that we need to be thrifty about what we do, and we need to find clever ways about doing stuff as well, though, because it is great having that support now and having all these big avenues that are open to us as well. But I can't shake the mindset of we need to find a clever way of doing this.
We talk about it a lot, right?
We do.
It's the thing that we talk about a lot is I think at Ninja we've always tried to punch above our weight, and I think we continue to do so. But part of that is like I say, finding the clever ways to do things, having restrictions and finding a way to do it regardless, and to deliver that quality. Because ultimately, we still want people to go, "Wow, like, how did you do that? How did you achieve that with a team of 6 people in environment art?"
Yeah,
not as a badge of honour, but because we want to go and tell stories and immerse people in the journeys in the best way that we can and give them the most compelling journey possible. But we want to do that with the studio structure and the team that we've got.
Yeah. I can't imagine us doing what we're doing in environment art with a team that was like 4 times the size. It would be a very different thing.
Is that because you feel like the team are kind of living and breathing it?
I think so.
Together?
Ever since we all went out there.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's got a really sort of deep understanding of what they're doing now.
Yeah. And it feels like a kind of a the passion is obvious, but it feels like an affection for the place.
I think so too. Yeah, absolutely. You know, everyone came away from that just wanting more.
Yeah.
But I honestly think we're kind of the optimal size as far as I'm concerned. Any more or any less, it would be a lot harder, or we just wouldn't be able to represent it in the same kind of way.
Yeah.
I think we're incredibly lucky.
So thinking about teams and team sizes, like let's say someone wanted to do the same thing as you and join a team like Ninja Theory, or go on and lead a team like you are at Ninja, and in 10 years, 15 years, are going to be the person that's going to be saying photogrammetry's Like, I remember when we used to do photogrammetry. Now we're doing this and that. What advice do you give to that person, what advice do you give to that 17-year-old Dan Attwell?
Well, I mean, the mentality I had was that I just wanted it. I just wanted more and more knowledge with that kind of stuff. Especially more so when I started the job. That was kind of, to me, that was almost like the first early years of that was like better than uni. But I was just like hungry for it. Do you know what I mean? And it was probably a lot harder them days to get answers to what, to the questions. So it's about feeding off each other and that. But these days there's a ridiculous amount of stuff out there that's free and that's accessible.
Yeah.
You can make a game, as long as you've got a PC, you can make a game with all 100% free software.
Yeah.
These days. So you just do it. You've just got to do it.
So just download software, download Unreal Engine.
Yeah. You've got to get a hunger for it. You've just got to, you don't have to break yourself, but just keep learning and keep trying to find new stuff and set yourself projects.
So make things. You think
make things.
Kind of aspiring environment artists should go and make.
Yeah, make whatever. Make shit things. Make as many things as you possibly can. Yeah. Fail as many times as you possibly can.
Yeah.
I look at things I've done in the past and I hate all of them. But then that's the only way you can get better is don't be complacent. Just keep going for it. Just get out there and try and make a game. Try and hook up with people. There's like one of the biggest things for me that until you've done that full dev cycle as well. When you do get in, or if you're trying to get into games and you want to make games, then make a game. But do the full cycle. Don't just do the enjoyable bit at the beginning where you get to try out cool stuff and do all the fun bits. Do the really shitty bit at the end when you're trying to make it run. Do the really shitty bit at the end when you're trying to upload it to the App Store or whatever. Yeah. Or the admin and the social media and all that crap. Do the really, stick with it and try and do the shitty bit. Yeah. Because then, until then, you're not going to have an understanding of what it is to make a game.
Yes. Yeah.
I think you've got to do that. And staying on a project till the end. There's only been one project where I've actually not seen it through to the end, and that's because when I left that company. I've been on the very first day to the very last day on every project that I've ever worked on. Yeah. And I think that makes a huge amount of difference.
Yeah. And I think that's true in any discipline, right? It's gaming, creating a game can be, you need to maintain the faith that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. And the only way to really do that is to have been through that tunnel before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's interesting what you say. If you can go through that full cycle early on in your career.
Even self-imposed.
Yeah.
Make yourself do it. Even if you go the full cycle and you end up with a piece of crap at the end, right? Yeah. That doesn't need to get 0 downloads or something.
You've gone through it. You've got the value of the experience.
Exactly. Yeah. You've done that, beginning to end. You've seen all of the phases. Yeah. You've done your bug testing, bug fixing. You've fixed all those problems with it, not doing this, that, and the other. But you've
gone
been
through certification on App Store or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do all of that for free.
You totally can.
And you can watch YouTube videos on whatever. It's the access to that kind of information now, and the ability to release games on mobile or on PC now is. I started my career in games. You had to be a publisher to ship a game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not even a developer. You had to be a publisher. You couldn't. There's Ninja Theory. We couldn't have rocked up to a platform and said we want to ship our game. They would have gone, great. Who's your publisher? Now, as an individual, you can go and ship a game.
Yeah. Well, it's the same with lots of stuff, isn't it? You can release music. You can publish a book. You can. It's just the world is just it's never been more accessible.
Yeah, but it's interesting what you say that end-to-end experience of doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And even if it's not going to make you millions, even if it's going to get 0 downloads, the value in it is actually in the experience of going through that process.
Yeah.
And understanding what it takes at each stage.
Yeah. Seeing the product as a whole, the game as a product, and seeing that bigger picture thing is just really, really valuable. Rather than, it's fair enough you want to be in this specific discipline, but you need to put your head up every now and again and have a look around and understand it in context of the entire thing.
Yeah.
And that's just essential, I think, to be a good game developer.
Yeah, and great if you can do it with a few other people, right? If you can get a couple of other people together, because so much of what we do is teamwork, right? It's in our values as a studio is teamwork, because it's such an important thing. Creating a game is entirely about collaboration. It's about bringing together art and code and audio and design, animation, all the disciplines together into an experience. So, yeah, I can imagine that if you're a 16-year-old out there, or the 17-year-old Dan Attwell, and you can get together with a couple of 2 or 3 other people and create a game and ship it. Yeah. What an amazing experience that is.
I have thought that as well. What if I was 16, 17 and interested in that kind of stuff, what the hell would I be producing now? It's just nuts what you've got at your fingertips.
Yeah. Well, like you say, with things like in Unreal, you've got access to that Quixel library, which is
exactly
professional quality assets that you can go and build worlds with.
But then, so that's one thing as well. But then understanding why your game doesn't run when you've put 50 million rocks in, whatever, and you've lit it with a billion lights. That's the bit that makes you into a proper developer.
Yes.
Anyone can just drag and drop something in there. Yeah. But if it doesn't run and it doesn't play, even if it's a crap game.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't run and it's not a complete thing, then
well, that's what makes game development particularly special. Is you can do what you like creatively, but it's got to run. Yeah. Exactly. And that's where it requires that cleverness. Is like you say, you can go and throw a billion rocks in there, but then your game's not going to run. So then you've got to try and find a way of achieving your artistic and your creative vision, but in a way that can actually make a shippable game. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting question to look back and say, what would you have been creating? Because I bet it would have been amazing.
It would, it boggles my mind, I think. Yeah. And some of the stuff that I used to do with like mates and that on my Amiga or on my Atari. Yeah. We used to do stupid videos and digitise them and animations and all this kind of stuff. And working within very limited kind of frame. I mean, it's probably crap, but when that is just completely open and all these free resources and like the processing power of cheapo computer equipment these days, it's just nuts to think about.
Yeah. So it's almost in your spare time you can go and actually learn a huge amount that's going to set you up well for getting that first game in the industry.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, if I had a CV drop and like a show reel, I would be more interested in the applicant who had shipped a game or had worked on a game with friends kind of thing, or solo or whatever, or had kind of seen the bigger picture. Yeah, I'd be interested in their stuff. Yeah, because I think you're a more rounded game developer then. You have, when you've got that bigger understanding.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that was really good. Thanks. Thanks to Dan, and I hope everyone found that super interesting. I certainly did. Learned some new things, so that's great. And we'll speak to you all next time. Bye.
See ya.
I finished that like a company meeting.
You did. And that's a wrap.
That was good. Thanks, Dan.